Welcome to another episode of the Deeper Than Know podcast. Today I'm catching up with Zach Collins, who's been crushing it in real estate for the last 5 years, starting with commercial and multifamily developments in Arizona. Now he's been taking things to the next level by building on the Caribbean island of Roatan. We'll talk about how he's mixing real estate with fitness through momentum retreats and how stepping up out of his comfort zone has opened up some cool opportunities for him. Zach, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man.
So Zach, can we start with just a minute or two of your background? You and I recently met over social media, a few phone calls, and are starting to form a long distance relationship, I think. So,
That's
anyways,
right.
give
Yeah.
us your background though.
Yeah. Um, so I have a little bit of I guess, an unconventional way of getting into real estate. So I started real estate just, let's see, 2018, I think, was when I started because I thought I was going to medical school and I was bored in my year that I was applying for medical school. So I got my real estate license and to be honest, I just was watching my brother go through medical school and he wasn't super, I mean, it was great, but it seemed like he was doing long hours. And so, not seeing his family too much and as I was doing real estate, I kind of started to notice that I might like that better. So that's kind of what pushed me to real estate is just trying it out while I was waiting for a year, to be honest. So I started, all I was doing was brokering commercial deals. So leases, sales of, retail, industrial, office, whatever it is, land. And so I kind of built up a client list, a good thing going for a couple years. Um, and then a couple years after 2018 was 2020. And about about 2 days in March, I lost every single deal I had going for me. I had over $100,000 in commissions that had just fallen out within 2 days, and I was like, oh man, well, that was about a year's worth of my commissions. So I was like, dang, well that sucks. I always wanted to do development anyways. We had some money saved up. Me and my wife were doing another company. It was more my wife's company, and I was just gonna, I'd help out when I could. Um, anyway, so we managed to save up a few bucks, but not a ton. And about April of 2020 was when I started to tie up my first property for development. So that's when I got into development 2020. By the end of 2020, I had my first property. It was a land deal. Um, Bought a residential piece of land and rezoned it for higher density, so for multifamily. At that time, things were cooking, especially in Arizona, things were going so fast. Um, and so I rezoned to multifamily and we couldn't we couldn't hold on to it. We just kept getting too many offers. So we ended up just selling it within like 9 or 10 months and made a really good return.
Can I go over
We
that
ended up,
with you because you shared it with
yeah,
me before? And if I
yeah.
remember the numbers correctly, I just want to show like what's out there if you're creative, because the deal is out there for every single person to go get, right? You bought a property, raised capital. I think it was like 600 something thousand is what you had to put down. Is that correct?
Let's see.
Or was
Yeah,
that the
yeah, it
total
was
property
six
value?
something.
600
No,
something
that's
grand.
what we bought. Right. That was the
That was the total
total. That was
value.
the whole. That was the purchase price.
And you paid cash for it and you raised money from investors. You gave them a
Yeah.
20% return in 9 months, which they're stoked about. So it's like, okay, I put in 100 grand. I'm one of your investors. I make $20,000 in 9 months. I am taken care of. I'm stoked. I love you, Zach. When's the next deal? But
Yeah.
on the flip side, you sold that property for what, 1.8, something like that?
Yeah. hmm
Which is like,
It
that's
was
just such
crazy.
a
I mean,
great win-win. And you didn't have to do anything other than, I don't want to minimize it, but like rezoning.
yeah.
How did you even know to do that? That's not something that I've like knew that was even market. I'm going to buy a property, I'm going to rezone it and then sell it without doing anything to it. How did you know that that's
Yeah.
possible?
So I got lucky. I mean, really, it came a lot down to luck. Once again, I'd been looking for properties, and what I did was, and this was the crazy thing. That deal was just crazy all the way through. So, what we ended up doing was we found, I brought on a partner, two partners, sorry. I brought on two partners, and one of them was an architect. And so, before we even bought the property, I said, hey, I'll bring you on as a partner. And can you tell me if we can get this done? Because at the time there's so much going on that getting something rezoned to higher density was kind of tough sometimes. And so what was great about this architect, and he's still my development partner till today, he's my secret weapon for everything I do. He was the chair for planning and zoning for Mesa.
Right.
So he knew exactly what he could get done and what he couldn't. So still today, he's the chair for planning and zone, or for the design review board. And so I was able to get the right guy in there to tell me what, we could or couldn't do, is basically what happened. And so the property itself was an Arizona Department of Transportation property.
Okay.
So it was owned by the state. And what they do is, and anyone can do this, a lot of people don't know this, but you can go on the Department of Transportation website and you can look up properties that they own that they're selling off. They'll use them for a specific purpose and then they'll sell them off for cheap. And basically what happens, at least in Arizona, is you put in what they call a bid. It's a 10% down on the purchase price. And it's usually, like I said, it's usually a really good price for property. But they make it public that you've put a bid in, and for 30 days, anyone else can bid on the property.
Okay.
And if anyone else does, you have to go to an auction. And
Okay.
so, anyways, we did that. We did
Let me comment
have,
real quick on that. So
yeah,
it was kind of, you had the right person to make sure
hmm
to then determine if you had the right opportunity or not, right? It's like we
yeah,
recently got a few grants. I mean, over $1 million in grants for Dirty Dough because somebody connected us with a group that does that. And, it's like, yeah, you pay them a lot of money to do it, but it's a grant. You don't have to pay it back. And then you tell other business owners, you're like, wait, what? How did you find out about that? And it's luck, right? Like, I don't know. Somebody
yeah,
introduced me to this guy and they said that he could get us a lot of money if we paid them a decent amount as well. But it's like win, win, win. I just,
right,
right before I came here, I got done signing, I have a new tenant in one of my properties, and the Boys and Girls Club is paying the rent for the first 6 months because she got into that program, which I'm sure a lot of people have less money than her, but they're not in the program because they don't even know about it. So
right,
getting in there, and I'm going to ask you a few questions on the college. This was my college experience because I also did pre-med. I had a full ride
yeah,
scholarship from academics. And then I also worked for the Boys and Girls Club. I got a scholarship that way, and I got a Pell Grant. I was making about $8,000 a year to go to school. After everything was paid for, I was pocketing about $8,000, which it's just like, wait, what? Why are you making money going to college? That's kind of opposite. And it was
yeah,
just getting out there and finding those opportunities. So I like the initiative, I guess. Like, let's just find the right people, see what advice they give. And in your case, it happened to be a partner. Are you still working with that person today in other deals?
yeah, yeah. We still develop. Yep, we're development. I mean, we've done other deals together, development deals. We do everything together. He's bought property in Roatan, so not we haven't bought any together in Roatan, but we're next door neighbors
Yeah,
in
that's
Roatan.
awesome. And
But
Roatan is
yes,
Honduras. If you want to go into that a little bit, because I don't know if
we will.
everybody
Yeah,
knows where Roatan is. But yeah, let's love to get
yeah.
into the Roatan side
So
of the business.
yeah, totally. But yeah, so that kind of like once I did that deal, we did a few more deals, but things started to kind of dry up in Arizona. I mean, at a certain point, things got too expensive, interest rates got too high. I was let's see, I was talking to some contractor, right? There's this contractor guy who we had bid out some projects and things like that. He and he kept going somewhere every month, and so at one point, my architect, he was like, "Hey, this contractor keeps going to Roatan. I'd never heard of it at the time, and he's like, yeah, he says he's got some good investments. You want to hear it out? I'm like, sure, why not? So we went to lunch and we talked to him. And sure enough, he's like, yeah, I've been investing in this island for 15 years now. I've invested all over the world, but this island's about to blow up. So we're just going crazy on it. And I'm like, okay, sounds fun. Um, but Yeah, so it's a little island out just off the coast of Honduras and Belize, right? It's just right out there. It's a beautiful white sand, turquoise water island. Great for snorkeling, scuba diving. Sits on the second largest coral reef in the world. So that's kind of the thing there is, a lot of people
Yep.
go there and just they'll just
That's
spend
how
a
I'd
week
heard
diving.
it because I'm a scuba diver, and
Yeah,
that's like usually on the top five list of every list.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's what people know it as, and it really has been a dive destination. Like that's what it is. And so I just said, you know what? Yeah, why, he's like, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. If you want to hop on a plane with me, I'll show you around the island and show you some opportunities. So I did. And before I left the island, I had bought my first lot. It was that simple. I'd seen that, there was a lot of potential. I'd seen that there was growth happening. I'd seen, you could just tell that there was a lot of infrastructure going in, a lot of development happening, but a lot of room to grow. And so I
Yeah.
was like, all right, yeah, let's give it a go, right? So he gave me a smoking deal, and I bought a lot. And then, a few months later, he's like, hey, the lot next door to your lot, I'll sell it to you as well if you want. I'm like, sure, I'll take it. So I bought that, and then it's just kind of snowballed. Since then, we sold everything and we had going in Arizona. Things were getting tough. Luckily, we made it out with profit on everything, and I
If-
dumped it
if-
there pretty much.
yeah, let me ask you a question on that.
Yeah,
One, you're talking about pivoting. The market dried up, so we pivoted. And I want to ask about the importance of pivoting, which I think is huge. But there's also that balance of stop trying to don't pivot too much because then you're not seeing your ideas all the way go through, because a lot of it is just like hunker down and keep going. It's like, oh, I haven't made any sales. How many people have you contacted? I've contacted 10 businesses. Talk to me when you've done 1,000, right? But at the same time, you're
right.
like, okay, I know it's time to pivot because of interest rates or because of the market or whatever it is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's like you said, like it's one thing if you haven't tried enough, but with real estate, there's kind of patterns, right? I mean, we've all seen patterns, and we all kind of know once interest rates start going up, there's a lot of projections saying they're not coming back down for a couple of years at least. I knew I had at least a couple years to play with, you know, until things were good again. And the truth is I pivoted when me and my partner, the architect, we were trying to do two multifamily deals that we had tied up. We had gotten the land for steals, right? I mean, it was like pennies on the dollar for these properties because of these certain situations. And we were running the numbers, we were bidding it out, and we couldn't make it pencil on a cheap piece of land for multifamily. Like that's supposed to be the best way to make money, right?
Yeah,
And when we had two of those deals and we had to back out of both of them because they weren't penciling, I was like, okay, I what
something's
am I
going
going to
on.
do? Just sit around? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I just couldn't sit still. I mean, when that kind of a deal's not working, I was just like, I'm not just going to sit around.
But
So
if I can point out something though, it's where's that? The question kind of was like, where's the balance? And if I heard
yeah,
you, it's like, well, I had my box that I know works, and as soon as deals aren't fitting into that box, I know I need to go find somewhere else. So it's because you already had the strategy, and then it's more picking the market to best fit that strategy. But you already had the strategy, or I guess what your cap rates or whatever needs to pencil. You knew what those were, and then you just have to go find what makes those work.
yeah, and I mean, I'm doing the same stuff, right? I'm still developing. It's not like I changed company or changed, careers, right? I just changed location, and I'm still doing the same stuff. I'm still finding land, bidding it out, developing it, and creating a real estate investment out of it, right? So
It was just
in one shape or another,
more
it's just in
pivoting into
a
the
different
market.
area.
So,
Yeah.
and you also made a pivot when you talked about the medical field. What did you want to be? How far into schooling were you? And is there a day that you remember, like that was the thought that, broke the camel's back? Like that's when I decided to pivot, whether that's a day or thought or something that led up to it, because that is a big pivot. I want to go to school
Yeah.
for 10 years and residency, all of that included, go into a lot of debt, but I have like this almost guaranteed, at least I get a good title that society respects, to I'm going to go
Yeah.
figure out what the hell I could do on real estate. What was that pivot point for you?
Yeah, you know what? I don't remember what triggered it, to be honest, but I do remember just driving in the car. I was in the passenger seat. Can't remember why. My wife was driving. We were doing something, and like I said, it was kind of in this gap year where I was applying, and um, I made it through. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in biology and a minor in chemistry. I got good grades, graduated cum laude, did hundreds of hours of everything you can think of. I have published articles and, medical journals and everything. I mean, I did everything I could. Um, I even got some good interviews for medical schools and didn't get in my first cycle, which, I even got my dream school, I was like, oh, I was ready to go. And then I didn't get in. And I'm like, all right, I'll just reapply. And it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me because in that gap year where I'm just, I got my real estate license, kind of just got doing stuff. But I think what it was just not being idle, right? I mean, I could have just waited around and wasted a whole year while I was reapplying, but instead I went and got my real estate license, started doing stuff. And I don't remember why, but like I said, I was driving, or my wife was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and we were just kind of talking about it. I'm like, you know what? I think I have a better shot at real estate anyways. And I think I'll like it a lot better. Like I just could tell that, my family life, my regular life would just be better doing real estate. And I saw a lot more opportunity in it, right? I wanted to be an eye surgeon, like an ophthalmologist was what I was gonna do. And that was gonna be a lot of school. That was gonna be, more than 10 years more of school. And I was just like, man, I gotta wait 10 more years. Who knows if, we won't be able to buy a house. We won't be able to, like, I don't know if we'll have kids. We'll, do all these things we want to do for that much longer. That seemed like a long time. And I just saw opportunity. So I saw just a way that I was going to be myself, I was going to be happier.
Yeah.
There's some people that they would love to be doctors and have a great salary and have that, stabilization, which would be nice, to be honest. I would love a good salary. But it just, I could just tell that the lifestyle is going to be better in real estate than it was as a doctor. And so
So I was
it
on
was
that
just
path
like,
as well,
yeah,
the doctor path, because the doctor path seemed like you can't lose on that one, you know? Um,
yeah,
but I don't remember anyone ever talking to me about family life, like that I should take that into consideration with being a doctor. There was no red flags to being a doctor. Not one person said,
yeah,
wait, but there other than there's a lot of school. I knew that, but nobody's like, well, once you
yeah.
finish, you you work all the time and you don't have the family life. Did you get anybody early on or any time that was like that gave you kind of a, hey, have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about your family life? The first time I thought about it was my wife when she was supporting me as I dropped out because she's like, I don't want that. Other than that, I never thought about it. How does that compare to your experience?
I didn't get anybody that said like, one way or another on family life. Like I said, I was watching my brother go through it. And now he's a doctor and he has a great schedule. I mean, he doesn't even work, he works 4 days a week and gets an amazing salary and, he has a great family life now. And so I can't say much for that now, but when he was in school, when he was doing all the residencies and doing all that, I was like, man, he's up before his kids are up and he's gone. And then he's home after they're asleep. And I was like, man, I just like, you never get to see your family. That's crazy. And so like that was one thing. And I had, you shadow doctors and do all that when you're trying to apply. And I'd shadowed a doctor here in Arizona that I knew. And, he's like, look, at the end of the day, it's just a job. Like, I dread coming to work. Like, he's like, this is a job. It's not like you're this fancy doctor and you think, you kind of have this idea in your mind. He's like, it's not that way. I'm coming to work every day and guess what? I'm just counting down the minutes till I leave. And so, like, don't think you're going to become a doctor and just have like this amazing life and lifestyle. Like, you still are stuck to a job. And that was the other thing. I'm just like, man, yeah, you kind of are stuck as a doctor. You can't miss. You have patients that rely on you and all that, right? And so it just was like, as I'm like thinking through it, I'm like, man, there's so much more flexibility in real estate, right? And that was kind of the turning point. It was just like, okay, I mean,
But
even once you're a doctor, you don't have the flexibility to be with your
yeah.
family, and that was kind of weird.
But what you're saying, I think a lot of it does apply to entrepreneurship. Like, oh yeah, it looks really sexy, but like most entrepreneurs still just show up for a job every single day. So what have you done? Like, if you made that decision based on like, I don't want to work my life away, have you been able to put guardrails in place to see that happens? Because typically where you're starting a business, real estate or whatever, you do get into that grind. And it is, yeah, you're not going to school, but you're
Hmm.
still working 80, 100-hour weeks and you're still not seeing your family. But yet you left the medical field to make sure you see the family. And then you spend all that's at least what I did with my solar company. I just worked all the time. And I'm like, yeah, this is a way better decision because at least I'm not in med school spending all my time away from my family. I'm just spending all my time away from my family doing my solar business.
Yeah.
Have you
I,
found that balance?
yeah, to be honest, like, I've just kind of always decided, like, I wasn't going to put work in front of family. And so it's been tough, especially in what I'm doing because of, like a lot of my work is overseas. So that means, you would think I'd need to be there all the time. And to be honest, I've probably taken a hit quite a bit because I won't go over there every month. I won't, because for me, like sacrificing time with my family to go do stuff like that, it's not worth it. So for me, I put my family first and then I
Was it
do as
worth it
best I
though?
can with work.
Was it
Yeah.
worth it in your mind until a certain point, until you've made the first $1 million or whatever it was, and you're like, yes, I'm willing to go overseas more until I get to a point, and then, or was it like that from the very beginning? Like, nope, here's my boundaries. I'm not working more than 40 hours or 50 hours or 20 hours, whatever it is. I'm like, here's kind of my guardrails, and I'll go out of town only once every 2 months, and I'm only going to go out for 3 days or whatever that is. Or did you have to build up to it?
Yeah, when I started, it was kind of like me and my wife talked about it, and we are like, I don't want to be going more than once a quarter.
Okay.
So that was kind of the plan. And to be honest, so far every year I've gone more than once a quarter, right? Just because I've needed to go. So I have had to go more than I've wanted to, but I don't have like I'm going to work this many hours and I'm not going to work this many hours each week. It's more just, I'm going to get what I need to done. I'm going to make something happen, but I'm not going to sacrifice the time that I want to spend with my family. And so, like I said, I've taken probably last year. I think I went to Roatan probably 6 to 8 times. I can't remember. So I went more. But what I did instead was I brought my family on 2 of those trips. And so I was able to spend time with them while I was there working or whatever it was. So I haven't really, I don't know. For me, it's never been like, okay, I'm gonna only work this much. Like, no, because what a lot of time happens is I'm working late into the night. But what that meant was I did work during the day. I spent my time with my family after work. And then once my kids were all in bed, then I worked, and it was like, all right, go back to work. And that's not always the best way to do it because you don't work great when you're tired, but also some things need to get done. And so that's the way I've done it. I've never wanted to sacrifice the family time. And so that was the main decision in going into real estate and doing my own stuff. So why would I get into something that's going to pull me away from my family, just like, the medical field would have?
Yep.
And so that's how I've always done it. It's been tough. And there's been a lot of times where I'm like, man, I probably should have worked more. Um, but I just, all you can do is your best. So
Yes, I
that's,
definitely agree with that. So you were attracted to the real estate. A lot of it was sounds like the freedom, and maybe more particularly the freedom of the work-life balance that you had to play with that. Um, I mean, I guess leaving that aside, is there anything else or what else would need to happen or is happening for you to find like, okay, this is a success for me as far as my career in real estate? Like, what are those check boxes that you're looking for to measure against, success, or if you need to be improving a little bit more?
Yeah. So what I need to do better at, and this is like my main focus this year, and I've done real estate so much different than most people do. Um, and it's not, I don't suggest anyone do it the way I'm doing it. But I need to focus more on producing more consistent cash flow. A lot of people will get into real estate by buying a duplex and they'll rent it out. And then once they've, rented it out for a certain amount of time, then they'll buy another one and blah, 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 right? What I've done is I found a deal that made me a big chunk of money and then I rolled it into something else and I've stashed away enough money to survive until the next big chunk comes, and I've tried to acquire cash flowing assets along the way, and I haven't done a great job at that. And so my like to be honest, and the reason is because every time I do a deal, I'm like, dang, there's another sweet deal. I got to do that one now. And so I'm really at myself in tying up new properties that aren't cash flowing. And so me and you have talked about, this little hotel I'm probably going to buy here soon. I'm supposed to sign a purchase contract today. That's more of I mean, along with the whole, fitness retreats and that whole business plan that I have, um, that's also a cash flow play. I have my house renting out, so that's a cash flow play. I'm now focused on doing things for cash flow, and one of my strategies for that is I'm offering long-term financing on properties too, seller financing, right? Because instead of just saying, hey, buy a piece of property for me for, a couple $100,000, I'm saying, yeah, just put a little bit down now, but pay me over a long period of time. That's what I have not done well at, is creating a consistent cash flow, a system. And so for me, like that's going to be huge in my success because that'll take a lot of stress off me having to always do the next deal. It's fun, man. I have too much fun doing deals. And
Dude, I'm
so
the
it's
same way.
like,
You can't, you're like, wait, if I don't buy this and it's on a
yeah,
great deal, I'm losing money. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. And so
um,
like I'm having too much fun, but I like for me that success is gonna be creating. I mean, first of all, ramping up these retreats and doing something that I enjoy more, right? That I can help people more, um, and then creating more consistent cash flow. That's going to be huge in me considering everything I'm doing as a success.
I love it. And then I'm going to make some assumptions. You correct me, but typically it's most people follow the same. I need more money because if I have more money, whether it's cash flow or whatever, or just cash in the bank, that equals freedom, and specifically more time freedom. And that's typically where people go through. And I think one step further that often we don't make is, oh, well, why do we want time freedom? Like, what are we gonna do with our time? Well, I'm gonna be with my family. And it's like, okay, well, how do you feel with your family? And it's like, well, yeah, I feel great with my family. And then it comes, at least this is the loop that I went through. And then it's like, wait, but I don't need $1 million to be with my family. Turns out I
Mhm.
live with them. Turns out I could be with them today. And you kind of do
Yeah.
this big loop of like, I need this to be with this, to be with this, to get free time, to be with my family, to be happy. And you're like, I could just skip right there, right now, and have it today, and then still work on all this other stuff to maybe enhance it a little bit more. Um, would you agree with that? Or
Yeah.
would you
No,
change
I
that?
totally agree with that. I mean, it's like have you heard that like story? I don't know if it's probably not a true story, but it's like some guy, I swear it's
The
like some guy
fisherman.
down in Mexico, right? The
Yeah.
fisherman. Yeah.
Tell it.
He's like,
Tell it to us though.
man, well, I don't know it perfectly, so I'm gonna totally butcher it. But the gist of it is, the fisherman who's he's doing well, and some guy comes to him. He's like, you catch so many fish, like why don't you hire out more boats and catch more fish and start employing all these people and then buying more boats, and you can create this whole system and then create this big empire of fishing. And then he's like, well, why would I do that? Because then you'll have all this money, and then you can do what you want. And he's like, well, I'm already doing, so what I would want to do is just keep fishing.
Yeah.
He's
Like,
like, I already do it.
I've
So
made it,
yeah,
which is
I've
crazy
made
because
it.
you can't say that which is
Yeah.
also crazy. It's like once you say you made it, you're going to let your foot off the gas pedal. Well, if you made it, why do you need to have your foot on the gas pedal? And why do
Yeah.
we glory add so much glory or honor to somebody who's just working so hard and just go 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 and the hustle mentality? And like we just really put that on a pedestal, and you're just like, but why? Why can't we put it on a pedestal of I'm satisfied with what I have and I don't need
Yeah.
more? And it's like, dang, how do we
Yeah.
freaking get there? And I do think
Yeah.
the answer to that is, well, you got to figure out your philosophy, and you have to realize that no matter what you get, it's not going to get you there. It really is a mindset, and it really is a just being comfortable with where you're at. But it's very hard because most of society doesn't feel like that.
Yeah. And that's my biggest, like, and that's when you ask about success, like, that is why the success for me will be the consistent cash flow, because that will take the stress off of me to constantly be doing more stuff, and I can be mentally and emotionally, I can be just be more present with with my family, with what I'm doing. Because, to be honest, like, what I'm doing is fun for me, and I can do it with my family, right? I can go to work, and what we're doing is we're going for a week trip to an island. Like, I want to travel with my family. Well, I can now work and travel with my family. So
Uh,
I don't need, like, I don't need all this money to travel, and with my family, because I can do that and work now.
let
But
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, but yeah, just consistent cash flow will allow me to just have a peace of mind of, okay, I don't have to worry about doing the next deal to pay my bills. It's going to be just automatic. And so that's kind of where, that's kind of what my biggest focus is now.
Mm. Let's wave the magic wand and you've hit your cash
Hmm.
flow goal today. How would your
Okay.
life be different?
Um, I don't know if it would be, I don't know if I would live much differently, if I'm being honest. Um, I would just, because I already spend a lot of time with my family, and just I work from home.
Mhm.
I see my kids multiple times throughout the day, and then I hang out with them from 5 o'clock and on every day. Um, and we try to travel as much as we can. I don't think I would change much. What would change is my peace of mind, in terms of, and just my the quality of my time with the family would be what would change, I think. Because a lot of times what I find myself doing is not forcing, but being with my family, but my mind is somewhere else,
Mhm.
because it's like, crap, I got to get this done or this signed or this whatever, right? That's what it is. And I want that to be different. And so for me, the difference would be checking out of work to be present with the family, instead of the other way around, while I'm with
Yeah.
my family checking into work.
Sorry.
So that would be the biggest change for me, is it would be a mental change, really, and a mental and kind of an emotional change that I would make.
I like that answer a lot. I mean, you're living the life as well as you can when that's your answer, and you're like, wait, I'm doing it. But it also makes sense of like, okay, well, you can only be so present if you're like, was this deal going through, or am I not worried about deals? Like that is 1,000% true. So and then there's kind of two ways to solve that. It's like, well, can I just be comfortable with without the cash flow? And is that easier to focus on allowing my brain and my body and my nervous system to not go into fight or flight in my current situation? Or is it easier to go get the cash flow? I don't know the answer to that. Um, what are your thoughts on that? Like, can you train your mind to be comfortable with what you are? And if so, is that easier or harder than just going and getting the cash flow? Because I see so many people chase that cash flow, and I'm not chase that goal, chase that dollar amount, that net
Yeah,
worth amount for their entire life, when it's like, man, what if you just spent a year meditating on getting your mindset correct? I mean, meditating is
yeah,
oversimplifying it, but like you
yeah,
focus your 100-hour work week on that. and you figure out how to control your thought patterns or direct them better.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be tough to my problem is if I don't focus on work and stuff like that, then I could focus all I want on my family, but then all of a sudden we're out of our house. We don't have can't pay our mortgage. We can't do that kind of stuff. And that's what the consistent cash flow is supposed to do. So for me, it's almost like I want to, I would love to just focus
Hey, but
solely on,
let me dial you back. You're not
yeah,
worried about paying your mortgage.
yeah,
And you wouldn't, I
I
mean,
am.
with your skills, okay, maybe even, I haven't looked at your financials, and I'm not, maybe I'll ask for them afterwards. I'm just joking. Um, I mean, you've made decent amount of money, and this isn't a trap question. This is just a
Yeah.
theoretical question that I'm
No, yeah,
asking myself constantly. Do
yeah,
I spend my time on getting me the thing that I think will help me achieve my goal, or do I spend my time on just being comfortable with where I'm at? You know, because you only have so
yeah,
much time in the day, and you have a lot of time in the day, and you typically spend those 40, 60, 80 hours a week working to hope that once you work enough, then it's going to achieve that mental state. Why don't you
yeah,
just work 30 hours a week and put 30 hours a week to just achieving that mental state anyway? I don't
yeah.
know the answer, and I like your response, and I'm not it makes sense.
No, I get it. And no, it's totally true. I mean, yeah, I think it's important. To be honest, what I've and I've almost made a slight change in this direction in this past year. And a lot of it's been due to, focusing on things that make me happy, like fitness, and just taking care of myself. What I've found is I've also taken, it's led me to spending more quality time with my family. And I've noticed that not only have I been, happier a lot of the time and more energized and more all that, but I've been able to almost be more productive because of that when I've worked. And so it's been interesting because I feel like I've worked less hours over the last year, but I've gotten more done. And I think there's something to that. I think when we're just burning out for, every day, for weeks at a time. And I think it's like, all right, well, you go to work and it's like, well, what's 60, 80 hours of work that's inefficient compared to 30 hours of work that's really efficient, When you're feeling good, you're happier, your mental state is more secure, like you're going to just do better, right? And you're going to be more efficient. You're going to be more driven. And so I've made a little bit of that shift, not nearly as much as I need to. Um, and it's kind of leading me to, I've also had this mental shift towards not being as worried about getting, because I own a bunch of property in the Caribbean, right? And I keep not selling property or whatever because I'm like, I don't want to give it to them for that low. It's worth this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm almost like at a point where I'm like, why not? Like, just sell it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can use that money to do something else and just not worry about getting the
Best deal.
top
Yeah.
dollar for every piece of property I own.
Yep.
I can still make good money. I can still be comfortable. And so I've really like recently I've sent out some deals where I'm like, man, I would not have done that a year ago. But
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, hey, why don't you guys come buy this from me? I could use a peace of mind, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been a crazy
It's
change.
like, man, this would turn into X amount of dollars in 5 years, or it could turn into peace of mind today.
Yeah.
And then depending on your
Yeah.
priorities, it's like, yeah, I'm going to take the peace of mind today.
Yeah.
Um,
Like,
and I completely agree
yeah,
with that.
I like yeah, I'm like I seriously sent out some deals just in the last couple of weeks to some big investors that I know bought property from me in the past, and I just say, hey, look, I'm willing to give you this smoking deal because I'm gonna do some other, I'm focusing on some more cash flow plays, but also like I'm just gonna pay off. You always try to leverage so that you can invest, so that you can, and I'm like, I'm just gonna pay a bunch of stuff off and then not have all that stress,
That's where I'm
right? I
at.
mean, I'm kind of at a point where it's like that's not worth my peace of mind
Yeah.
if I can still create, I mean, I don't need to be the next Grant Cardone that's you know, like what does that do for me? That guy's, he's got to be stressed all the time,
And
you
it's I
know?
think it's the lack of asking that question of what does that do for me that you want it until you ask like, but what does that actually do for me? And then you're like, oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't actually do that much, and it doesn't equate to all of the stress that's probably always just chaotic going on, just so I can have a little bit more, because if I have a little bit more, the that feeling is just around the corner. It wasn't my last 100 goals that I met, but it's the next goal. The next goal is going to get me there. And you're just like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It never will.
Yeah.
You got to change your mindset on what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because it's like, I don't know. I mean, at this point, it's like, is it just, am I saying this just because I'm at a certain point to where I know, okay, I can sell everything for a lot cheaper than what it's worth and still be really well, do
Yeah.
okay with all that and be fine? Or is it, if I didn't have that, like I leveraged myself to get to this point and put all that stress on myself. Am I only now saying this because I've gotten to this point, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, okay, now I can sell it off and pay off all those debts and be back to, a comfortable place and have some cash and do some, whatever, right? Live comfortably. It's like, I don't know. Maybe it was worth a couple years of stress to get to a point
That
to
now
then
you
be able
can,
to, I
yeah.
don't know,
So
you know?
I hear that a lot, and I ask that question quite a bit. Hey, did you get to the mindset of I'm already living my life, and money's not important? Did you get to that mindset before or after you had money? And really, I mean, like truly, at least on this podcast and in my memory, I can't think of anybody that didn't say, no, I had to get the money first. And then I realized it wasn't as fulfilling as possible. I had to get the security first. And then I realized that I didn't need to use so much leverage. Cause I was like, Dave Ramsey's a freaking idiot. If you could borrow from the bank at 3% and charge somebody else 8%, like, what are you doing? And then now I'm like, nope, I'm paying off. I want to just pay off everything because I don't want this stress. And for me personally, I'm like, I don't see how I would have got to that point if I didn't have the leverage and I didn't see how it could grow wealth first. And then I'm like, okay, that's cool. I get it. That's a tool, but it's not worth the stress. I already lived it and I already got the reward. I hope I don't have to do it again. So I haven't
Yeah.
found anybody that has been the contrary. Like, nope, I've never had money. I've never made good money, but I know right now that I'm willing to sell properties at a loss. I mean, they don't
Yeah.
have properties typically
Yeah.
until they
Yeah.
reach that
Yeah.
point. So,
Yeah.
okay,
It's
last
funny
question.
because
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
okay, yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, I remember thinking back a couple years ago when me and my development partner, the architect, sold some property, and I dumped it all into Roatan. I'm like, "Ah," and he paid off his mortgage, and I'm like, you're an idiot,
You're stupid.
I'm
That's
like, you're
basically
so
what.
stupid. Like, keep your mortgage and just keep paying that off. And then now I'm like, dang, that guy doesn't have a mortgage. That guy has, and he's been able to, like, yeah, anyways, he's done really well since then, and he's a little bit older. He's probably 10 years older than me or something, so he's at a different phase of life where he's smarter than me and knows what he's doing. But I just remember thinking, like, dude, like
What are
you
you doing?
gotta,
Yeah. And then in 10
you
years,
gotta go and build,
in 10 years, you're going to be the same. It sounds like you're already there right now. You're like, okay, I get it. I want zero
I'm
stress first, and then I want more money. I have enough already. I just want to reduce the stress, and then we'll focus on more money later. But yeah, anyways, the whole Dave Ramsey thing, I'm like, that is so stupid. Go get credit cards at zero interest for a year, and blah, 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 blah. And then go buy homes with it. And then if you bought a home 2 years ago, pretty much anywhere, it hasn't gone up in value. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's like, crap, but now
uh-huh.
I've been paying 25% interest for a year because I didn't follow Dave Ramsey. And you're like, oh, oops.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
whoops.
Last question. There'll be a follow-up with it as well.
Okay.
What is the most proud accomplishment? And you could keep it business focused. Like this was the deal, and maybe it was that first deal that we talked about. Um, it could be something else, but no, let's keep it in career. Let's keep it in the career base. What's
In the
the
career.
most or one of the most proud accomplishments you've had in your career?
Mm.
Or one of,
Mm,
so you don't
mm,
have to
mm.
make sure it's the most. Just something that you're like, I
Yeah,
achieved this in my career and I
yeah.
was stoked.
There's been two parts in my career where I've been like, oh, that felt good. Um, and the first one was that first deal we talked about. I remember because it's so hard to take the leap, right? Um, I was spending my $25,000 that I had to do the down payment before we raised the money, from the investors. So yeah, in that first deal, all just if I all I put into it was $25,000. So people think you need hundreds of thousands to buy any. It's like no, nope. I did it with 25,000, and
And you made
we made a few bucks.
several
And
hundred
so
thousand dollars.
and so, but like, at that time it was like 25,000 was everything, right? It
Mhm.
was, that was it. And I remember, I was more proud probably when I bought the property than I was when we sold it,
Okay.
which is weird. I remember feeling better about when we bought it than when we sold it. And I remember feeling like, yes, like I got a deal, and I was just so freaking pumped. And I remember like calling my wife, like, "We got it," because it was a crazy situation. We had to go to auction, and we ended up getting it. And I was like, man, that was hallelujah, right? I'm in. And that was one of the time, when we sold it, it was like, oh, great, we made some money, but now what? I got to get the next property. So I wasn't able to really enjoy it.
That's where this question was leading. The follow-up question I
Yeah.
told I was going to ask you is like compared to me, like, okay, if I make a $500,000, I thought my life would be perfect. Compared to I made a $500,000, whatever the number was, and it was for a day or 2 days or 2 months until my body went back to homeostasis and returned to its normal base levels of happiness. And that's really what I'm trying to draw the
Yeah.
correlation to, because I do think, again, it's once I hit this, problems are going to be solved. And I've never found
Yeah.
anybody that's hit that yet.
Yeah, no, it's seriously like I remember selling it. Like I said, it was like sold it, and it was like, oh yes, I get to pay off some of these things, and right, and it was like, okay, now I get to put some money in the bank. But the truth was it was like I just was like sitting there like, crap, I gotta do something with this, or else it's all a waste, right? I mean, if you do one deal,
Yep.
and I remember talking to a guy, a builder down here who's done really well, and I've known him, and I remember him telling me that he's like, "Don't think you're gonna do this one deal and be done. Like you're like that won't last you very long." And so instead of being able to enjoy it, it almost became another source of stress.
Yeah.
It was like, crap, now I've done this. What do I do with that? I'm now at like this point where it's like, instead of being able to enjoy it, it just brought on another layer of stress. I've got to do something with that, or it was all a waste.
And I
So that
honestly think,
wasn't,
like, you were looking for that deal or any deal, and I'm looking for any deal, and anybody's looking for any deal, because it's like, well, I have to have money, because if I don't, life is going to be bad. And that's
yeah,
fear-based, right? You're doing it based of trying to avoid a bad scenario. And then you're like, okay, well, but it's okay. I'm going to operate out of fear just until I get it. And then once I get it, I can operate out of abundance or whatever the hell you say. But no, you get it, and now you operate out of fear of losing what you just gained, and it's just a never ending, like, I'm just going to do everything in my life because of fear. It's fear of not losing something I already gained, or fear of not having something that I want. And it just comes so poisonous, I guess, of like, no, it's just you will always be in that cycle. Um,
yeah.
and getting more does not get you out of fear based. It could add to it.
You're right. No, it totally does, and that's what people don't get. People think, oh, these all these rich people, they're just, it's like, why can't they just be happy? And it's like because you don't get with money comes stress. Like
Yeah.
with money becomes pressure. I mean, unless you're a person that can just do one deal, make a bunch of money, throw it into some like I don't know, the S&P 500, make 10% and ride that out for the rest of your life, like you are now like every deal you do just adds another layer of stress.
Yep.
And it's like that's what people don't get. You think money is going to bring you happiness, but what it does is it adds pressure. And so totally, it's like I felt really good when I tied up that property when I first bought it. And then I felt a lot of stress when I sold it and made a bunch of money. I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow. And then I felt all the stress and I'm like,
Yep.
oh shoot. And like I'm like, dang, and that's just kind of how it always is, right? It's like I get excited when I buy something because
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I have something to look forward to. And then I sell it and I'm like, oh shoot, now that thing I was looking forward to the whole time is gone. What do I have to find something else now?
Yeah.
It's just this total vicious cycle.
And and a lot of people just don't, and that just doesn't cross their mind until they have it. That's why I asked the question. So I really appreciate
Yeah.
that. And I mean, Zach, everything that you've shared, thank you. I appreciate you being a guest.
Yeah. No,
And really, I mean, it's such an interesting story from med school to the real estate and really crafting the life you want to live. Whatever percentage you are already there, which it sounds like a high percent because you're like, my life really wouldn't change that much. And how old are you, Zach?
oh man, what am I? 32? 32. Getting old.
So old you can't even remember, man.
Can't even
32 years
remember.
old,
So many
dude.
years, man.
Well,
32.
well, Zach, I
Yeah.
appreciate your insights. Thanks for being a guest.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. It's been a blast.
All right, that's it.